So vlog 5 is going to be two-part. The first one's the UNC tracking of the student athletes, and then the other one's the NCAA academic rule that's hurting the historically black colleges and universities. So I'll just go through the facts and then kind of my thoughts on them. So for the technology, for the tracking of the UNC student athletes, it's an attendance monitoring software with a Bluetooth signal that's transmitted to the student athlete's smartphone, and once it's transmitted and it connects with the phone, then it checks them in so that they're in class. It doesn't use GPS tracking, which was something that the student athletes that have used it didn't like. I don't know if they thought that it did have the GPS tracking, so they thought they were being monitored when they weren't just in class, but it doesn't use the GPS tracking. It only locates them from when they enter the classroom to when they leave, and it seemed pretty problematic even for the faculty as well, because it said the biggest problem is that I guess there was a lack of communication from the university to the administration and faculty. People were coming in and installing these devices into the classrooms, and they weren't really explaining to them very much what it entailed, and so they didn't like that very much. But as far as my thoughts is, they actually talked about in the article as well, is that there's a professor at the university that developed a different kind of app, and it's called UNC Check-in, because this one for the student athletes is called Spotter EDU, and it's an automated check-in. So as soon as you're within range of that Bluetooth, it tracks you and it knows that you're there. UNC Check-in is a little different. You'll show up to class, and then you'll open the app, and then you'll manually check yourself into class, and so there's no tracking that involves that. You're just there, and then you say that you're in class. And what confused me is that so they did obviously the review on the Spotter EDU, and the athletes didn't really like it, but the reviews on the UNC check-in seemed to all be pretty positive from what the professor said, and the professors that have used it have gotten positive feedback. And so I know student athletes and non-student athletes are different in some aspects, but I don't see why the method of making sure that the class has to be any different, because from the sounds of it, like I said, this UNC check-in seems to have worked pretty well. So I feel like maybe they should give that a go and have that as their method, because I think the basis behind it makes sense. Like, obviously you want your student athletes in class, so I think it's worth a shot to, I guess, continue to try this Spotter EDU, but I think it'd make more sense to just do the UNC check-in. So the NCAA academic rule that's hurting the historically black colleges and universities, so they have the rule that involves APR, which is your academic progress rate. You need to have as a program a 900, well, I guess for the athletes, you have to have a 930 APR, which equals to 50% required of the graduation rate of the program. If you exceed this APR, then you're awarded. If you don't meet the APR, then you're punished by the NCAA, and that can be through decrease in scholarships, decrease in practice time, and also you can become ineligible for the postseason, which has been the problem for these HBCUs. And as far as the APR quantification, so each athlete can gain 2 points per semester. You get 1 point for having a GPA that makes you eligible for the next semester, and then you also get a point for retention. So if you enroll in the next semester, or if you graduate, you get that point. And since 2014-2015, HBCUs have accounted for 84% of postseason ineligible teams because of failure to meet this APR. And it's kind of punishing them. Well, it is punishing them, but it's kind of rough for these HBCUs because they're smaller institutions. They have less than 6,000 students, it said. And so because of this, they have obviously less former alumni, less boosters. They get minimal state funding, and you need money in colleges and universities to help provide academic resources, because these top tier Division I programs that are generating all this revenue, they can obviously invest more into their academic resources and make sure that their athletes perform better. So my thoughts on that is that rather than punishing these HBCUs, I feel like the NCAA should try and help them. If you're making, I looked it up, and it said in 2016, I think the NCAA was making $995.6 million. I assume it's a lot more than that now, I'm sure it's in the billions. So if you're making that much money, and the NCAA is an organization that prides itself on, the student athlete, making sure that student athletes have a good experience and that they graduate and all this, if you're gonna say that, I feel like you kind of gotta put your money where your mouth is as the NCAA, and help these struggling programs. Because I mean, if you do have the resources and you're failing to meet this APR, then I do agree with the punishments in decreasing scholarship practice time and ineligibility. But to punish schools that don't have the resources just seems ridiculous to me, to be honest. Because how can you expect a school that's as low funded as these HBCUs to make it work? Because it's tough. Because a lot of other schools and institutions can hire not academic advisors, but like tutors to help their student athletes. They can provide them separate academic places to have study hall and things like that. So I think if you're the I agree with the rule, but I feel like it has to be program by program, because you can't have the same rule for a top tier University of Alabama with some of these smaller HBCU schools and expect the same results when they're financially funded significantly different.